Welcome back, y'all. This is part 2 of episode 50. We got some great topics to round out this episode. We got college football, NHL, and NBA, which tipped off last night with a great doubleheader. So let's get right into it, starting with college football in the top 25 on this Wednesday morning. We got Ohio State at 1. Of course, Ohio State at 1. They've been having a fabulous year at 7-0. Indiana right behind them in the highest ranking in program history. Indiana football is ranked number 2 in this poll, and it's the AP top 25 poll, which I'm looking at right here. Just amazing. I know they're a great basketball school. The Hoosiers, and Coach Knight and that legacy that they have over there with basketball program, but football program taking the reins in Indiana, and that's crazy to even look at, to be honest. It's a little bit foreign to my eyes, but with all that being said, the first time in program history being ranked within the top 2, and congratulations to the Indiana Hoosiers. Right behind them, we have the Texas A&M Aggies also at 7-0. Pay attention to them. Alabama at 4, even though with that loss, find themselves at 4. Georgia Bulldogs at 5. We got Oregon Ducks at 6. We got Georgia Tech at 7. Man, I don't recall seeing the last time Georgia Tech was within the top 10. It's been a while. We got Ole Miss right behind them at 8. We got Miami at 9. Vanderbilt at 10. Vanderbilt with that big win and going ahead and finding themselves within the top 10 after beating LSU. BYU right behind them at 11. Notre Dame at 12, beating USC this past weekend. Oklahoma at 13. Texas Tech at 14. Missouri at 15. Virginia at 16. Need to pay attention to Virginia because they find themselves in the top 20 right there at 16. And then we got the Tennessee Vols at 17 right behind them. USF at 18, Louisville at 19, LSU at 20 after that loss, Cincinnati at 21, Texas at 22, Illinois at 23, Arizona State at 24, and to round out the top 25, the Michigan Wolverines. So, man, that's an intriguing top 25. What's been really intriguing about this entire season has been the fact that there really hasn't been any proven teams, and that goes to show with this top 25 this week in week 8, I believe it is. Now week 9. So just like I said, crazy to see a lot of these teams in the top 25. Georgia Tech, Indiana within the top 10, Vanderbilt. I know that they've always flirted, here and there with being, a top 25 team, but never within the top 10. So, like I said, unproven teams and teams that have been, coming out of the woodworks. It's an interesting layout. It's an interesting top 25, and I'm really intrigued to see what the top 12 is going to be at the end of the season. CFP rankings are going to be coming out here soon, so we'll be getting into those within, the next couple of podcasts, but very open field, very open to see who wins this national championship this year. I wouldn't be, opposed to say that it would be someone of their first national championship in school history, and that is essentially what this college football playoff dynamic in this schedule and this bracket, wanted to bring to the table. More opportunity for other schools to get their, first national championships or other national championships to build on their legacy, to not necessarily have, the blue bloods run the entire college football landscape for the entirety of, college football. I feel like basketball does it a really good way. Baseball does it a really good way. You still have your blue bloods and you still have your programs that are essentially going to run college football or college baseball and college basketball rather. But with this, scheme of how they run the playoffs with the brackets and the March Madness, and as well as the playoff brackets for baseball, if you guys pay attention to those, it's essentially the same kind of, not layout by any means. It's not like a whole bracket where everybody's in it, but it's essentially that, where it's sectioned off in regions, and then it gets into the super regionals. So it's a larger bracket. But what I'm getting to is the fact that, like I said, it's an open landscape. A lot more people are a lot more programs are able to win national championships. And I am so excited to see, in this second year of the playoff, what it brings to the table. And hopefully, these teams like Georgia Tech, Vanderbilt, last throughout the entirety of this season and find themselves within the top 12 and see if they can play, an Alabama, an Oregon, a Georgia, an Ohio State within the playoff. I know Indiana was there last year, but was really in the bottom tier of the playoff. We found ourselves seeing Arizona State and the Boise State as well competing, but not really competing when it came to, actually winning those ball games. With all that being said, it's going to be exciting, and I can't wait for it. So let's get into the week two, or not week two, but next week's schedule for what we got for college football. If we got any potential upsets right here, and possibly right here, right away, as UCLA is going to be facing Indiana in Indiana. Obviously, UCLA has had an up and down season, started the season 0-4, but rattled off 3 straight wins. So we have to pay attention to what they got going right now. And they could, go into Indiana and upset the number 2 team in the land, right off their high horse. Indiana, probably not thinking anything of UCLA coming to a colder state, all that, hoopla and what you want to talk about, East Coast, West Coast football. Also being the number 2 team in the land and not necessarily thinking that, UCLA is going to knock them off. It could potentially happen. It could be a trap game. So that right there, right off the rip, is a potential trap upset, whatever you want to call it. UCLA and Indiana within the Big Ten, Syracuse and Georgia, Ole Miss and Oklahoma, Virginia and North Carolina, USF and Memphis, Alabama and South Carolina. That could be a potential upset as well. Missouri and Vanderbilt is going to be an awesome matchup. Iowa State and BYU, Illinois and Washington, Oklahoma State and Texas Tech, Baylor and Cincinnati, Texas and Mississippi State, Wisconsin and Oregon, a good Big Ten matchup there. Stanford and Miami, a good ACC matchup there. Texas A&M and LSU, a SEC matchup that LSU needs this win right here. Needs a top 5 win to go ahead and cement themselves in the conversation for a top 12 berth, even though they have 2 losses. We'll see what happens there. Boston College and Louisville, Michigan and Michigan State, an in-state rivalry right here. Tennessee and Kentucky, and Houston and Arizona State to round out this schedule right here on ESPN. So I'm excited to see those matchups that I went ahead and told you guys about. But like I said, it's an open landscape this year. A ton of, more teams are going to, come into the fold and, potentially have their shot at a top 12 berth. And, this season's going to be rounded out here in a couple weeks. We got about 5 or 6 more weeks, if that, with, the big, not the Big Ten, but, the championship weekends that we got going and the rivalry weekends we got going. So it's going to be exciting, guys. It's going to be exciting. It's going to be up for grabs. But I want to go ahead and give you guys my Heisman front runners right now as of week 9. I think personally, and this might be an outlandish statement and a kind of a hot take, if you will, Julian Sayin out of Ohio State. I know he's a freshman. I know that he hasn't been necessarily having the whole complete package of the year, but as of late has been really turning it on with this Ohio State Buckeyes team, and I can see him going ahead and really making his case for a Heisman Trophy winner. And Dante Moore out of Oregon also going ahead and doing his thing out in Eugene. Really kind of a silent year for Oregon. Yes, they've been winning. Yes, they obviously have been, doing it at a great clip. They have that 1 loss at 6-1, but they're still within the top 10 at number 6. And I think that Oregon has the potential to win the national championship with the identity that they have this year. A lot of guys, did leave, but a lot of guys are returning from the team that they had last year. But I think that this team has potential, and we can possibly see them in the national championship at the end of the season. John Mateer out of OU, just a great year, transferring from Washington State, going ahead and going to Oklahoma and proving to everyone that he is a top quarterback in this class, and potentially going ahead and raising his stock, as we are seeing right now on our TVs. And he's just having a fantastic year. We'll see if they go ahead and win that Big 12 out in Oklahoma, but at the end of the day, I still think that they can find themselves within this college football playoff and go ahead and continue to prove that he is a top quarterback in this class. And last but not least, Jaden Mayava out of USC. I know that they had this loss this past weekend to Notre Dame, but I do think that he's making steps in the right direction, just like Julian saying. Mayava is one of the younger quarterbacks, not going to be drafted right now, but at the end of the day, I do feel like he is going to be a pivotal piece moving forward for this USC Trojans team, and going forward, possibly, not maybe this year, but maybe in the years coming forward, to go into the college football playoff and bring USC back to the glory days that they once had. Maybe not in national championship glory days, but back into competing for that national championship. But now let's go ahead and move into the NHL, as we have been in full-fledged NHL mode as well. There's so many sports going on. I know that there was a ton of lulls going on during the summer, but now we got so many different things to talk about, and this is what I've been looking forward to. So now let's get into some hockey. I'm gonna be getting into some hockey a lot more as well, guys, getting some guys on here to be talking some more hockey with you guys, and as well making sure that I get my knowledge up. Yes, I've covered hockey and at NBC, but at the end of the day, I want to get my knowledge up with the specific players, and also the schematics of the game, what is going on with the plays and all these other guys getting substituted in and out. I know the whole, the rules and the penalties and all that being said, but when it comes to the schematics of the game and what the knowledge of what it is like to be on the ice, I want to know what it's like. So gonna bring guys on that have played the game, that guys that know the game, and but for now, I'm just gonna be going over the scores and a couple of the statistics, if you will. But with all that being said, let's get right into it, as the NHL has been full-fledged underway. Tons of teams have gone, multiple games under their belts already. I believe it's 6 to 7 games. 6 to 7 games. Please don't hit me with in the comments with that one. But at the end of the day, they've been having a handful of games under their belt. So let's get right into it. Right off rip, my Ducks went ahead and got the dub last night on Tuesday night, 5-2 over the Predators. They sit right now at 3-2-1, 2-1-1 away. We went ahead and had Johnston with a goal, 2 assists, and was +3 in the plus-minus category. Gauthier as well, left wing, a goal, assist, and +2 in the plus-minus category. And Nashville's Jost had 1 goal with a -1 in the plus and minus category. And mind you guys, that's not always bad if you have a -1 in the plus-minus category. Devils went ahead and took out the Maple Leafs 5-2. The Devils sit at 5-1-0. After losing 1 game, they find themselves in a 5-game winning streak. So the Devils right now on a hot streak. The Oilers went ahead and took out the Senators in overtime 3-2. The Senators find themselves at 2-4-1, and the Oilers at 3-1-1. Wallman with a goal, no assist, plus-minus of 0. Howard, 1 goal and no assists, with also a plus-minus of 1. The Sharks went ahead and also lost to the Islanders 4-3. The Islanders are 3-3 on the season. The Sharks find themselves at 0-4 on the season, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, are the only winless team in the entire NHL right now. So that's just not good. For my former team that I covered at NBC Sports Bay Area, I know my guys in that studio are feeling it right now. It's been like this for quite some time now. The Sharks had, their great glory days, and with Joe Thornton, Pavelski, Marlowe, just down the laundry list of guys, if you will. But back when they went to the Stanley Cup and really brought the city of San Jose to life, never really seen it like that ever. and it would be cool to see, something like that happen in such a kind of sub city, if you will, of a bigger city like San Francisco, but still in the Bay Area. All that being said, 0-4, and it's just not looking very good right now. It's looking rather grim for the San Jose Sharks this season in the 2026, even though they did have their first overall pick not too long ago. So 4-3. 4-3, the Islanders take out the Sharks. The Canucks also lose to the Penguins 5-1. The Penguins find themselves at 5-2 this season. The Canucks at 4-3. The Capitals take out the Kraken and 4-1 and find themselves at 5-2. Kraken 3-2. Panthers take out the Bruins and are 4-4 of the season. The Bruins in 3-5. They go ahead and win that game 4-3. The Kings go ahead and take out the Blues 2-1 in overtime. Find themselves at 2-3-2. The Blues 3-2-1. Blue Jackets go ahead and take out the Stars 5-1 and find themselves 3-3, as well as the Stars 3-3. And last but not least, the Mammoth go ahead and find themselves at 5-2 and take out the Avalanche 4-3 in overtime. Who the Avalanche at one point, were looking rather great with no losses, and still have no losses, but no, overtime losses. And this Mammoth team, this expansion team, is looking rather good right now, guys. And I wouldn't say that they are, part two to the Knights, but I mean, these expansion teams in these NHLs just seem to take off. 5-2 and 4-0 at home. But that's all the scores that we have right now from last night from the NHL. But hopefully my Ducks go ahead and, have a pretty good season. I know that last season wasn't great, but ultimately I think that this season will be a little bit better with the young guys that we have, and hopefully winning a little bit more games than we did last year. Bottom 5 team in the NHL last year. So just finding a way to just win more games. I'm not looking for a playoff berth by any stretch of the imagination, but managing to just step by step go ahead and win these games. And same thing with the Sharks. I hope for the best for the Sharks. Continuing going forward, go ahead and finally get that dub, hopefully here soon. But let's get into the schedule for tomorrow before we move into some NBA talk, which tipped off last night as well. Tomorrow we only got 3 games on the NHL slate: the Wild and Devils, Red Wings and Sabres, and Canadians and Flames for the Wednesday slate. So let's go ahead and move on to some NBA, because that also tipped off last night, and it was just amazing to see not only the NBA tip off, but my team go ahead and get their rings. Yes, sir. Ring me. Ring me to all the haters that be talking on the OKC Thunder. You know what it is. You cannot say anything anymore about us. Every time that you go ahead and talk about the Oklahoma City Thunder, you have to reference NBA champions. But back to the point, the NBA season kicked off last night in spectacular fashion with a doubleheader between the Oklahoma City Thunder and the Houston Rockets, and finished off the night with the Warriors visiting the Los Angeles Lakers. So let's get right into the action. NBA season is here, guys, as it tipped off last night with the doubleheader starting with the defending NBA champion Oklahoma City Thunder versus the Houston Rockets and newly acquired Kevin Durant, who witnessed the ring ceremony while on the bench. I know he won't say it, but I bet it was bittersweet that he went ahead and saw the ring ceremony, and ironically enough, he goes to the team that is playing in the Oklahoma City Thunder, the first game of the season, and after the year that they won the NBA championship, after leaving the team that drafted him, after 3-1 to the Warriors, after snaking, I can go on, guys. I'm not going to continue, but that's another story for another day. I'm not the biggest Kevin Durant fan. Being an Oklahoma City Thunder fan, I feel like a lot of sports heads will kind of understand what I'm saying, or fully understand what I'm saying. I don't really have to explain anything to you guys, but to the casuals in the comments that are gonna go ahead and attack me for Kevin Durant, if you guys are, probably not, but it's a it's a love-hate relationship. Yes, I love everything that Kevin Durant brought to the table for Oklahoma City, but at the end of the day, he snaked us, man. He snaked us. But back to the point, I bet it was bittersweet just seeing that happen. I bet he won't say it just being the person that he is. He definitely won't say that it affected him by any stretch of the imagination. But I bet it will. But to the game, it was a thriller, guys. After the ring ceremony and all the action of that, getting our rings and all that, we got to the game and it was a thriller. It was a actual crazy game, to be honest, going into double overtime as the Thunder took the game 125 to 124 after SGA sent it into overtime with his signature pull-up. No dub, no J-dub, so SGA had to do his thing, going 35-5-5, and Chet going 28-7-2, and Cason Wallace also having a standout game, going 14-7-5 in place of dub. Then the Warriors went ahead and Lakers capped off the night, an opening night rather, as the Warriors downed the Lakers, even with the late surge with no LeBron, 119 to 109. As Curry had an off opening night, but hit a clutch deep three, going 23-1-4 and 3 of 9 from 3, as Jimmy played well, going 31-5-4. And Kuminga from 3 land now, that is nuts, guys. That is nuts. 17-9-6, and 4 of 6 from 3 from Jonathan Kuminga. Buddy Hield also had 17 off the bench, which helped a ton. 5 of 10 from 3. But Luka went crazy, and that is just unfortunate that they lost. But the stat line was nuts, guys. The stat line was nuts. Luka had a crazy stat line in the loss, 43, 12, and 9, and 2 of 10 from 3, though. While Reeves also had an off night, going 25, 26, 5, and 9. Smart had 9 off the bench, but was the most off the bench, and not good coming from a defensive first guy who's scoring the most off your bench for the Lakers. But yeah, guys, just a tough night, I guess, all around for the Lakers. The Warriors are proven to be an experienced team, especially with Curry. I feel like everybody that just joins Curry that has good basketball knowledge plays the game right, gels right with the Warriors. And Jimmy Butler is that type of player, and it just speaks volumes to his stat line tonight, going ahead and having 31, 5, and 4. Yeah. I mean, the Warriors are going to be a threat this season. I don't think that they're not, someone that you can just roll over and just think that you're just going to, beat up on the Unks. They have experienced ball. They might not move like everybody else around the league, but at the end of the day, they are going to be in the playoffs, I think, this season. They might have some up and downs with injuries, but as long as they stay healthy, I think this Warriors team is lethal. I really do. And to the Lakers, I think that as long as Luka continues to do what he's doing, you get LeBron back, everybody else has got to contribute. I think that this has been the story and the narrative of the Lakers for season after season after season. Others got to contribute. This is game 1 of this season. We don't want to jump the gun, but it is concerning to see that Austin Reeves has to carry somewhat of all the weight. Luka Doncic has to carry somewhat of all the weight. And that's only 2 guys, right? You need a bucket here, a bucket there. And, a couple clutch shots by Rui Hachimura or Gabe Vincent or even Jared Vanderbilt, for that matter. It doesn't have to be threes, but clutch baskets just later in the game would have put them in better position to go ahead and win and have Luka time and have Austin Reeves time. But when you constantly rely on those guys and you lean on those guys, they're going to miss shots. And so it just looks at, when you look at the broad landscape of things and you watch it, through your television, you're like, damn, Reeves is missing a lot of shots. It's really because he's taking the most shots. Luka's taking the most shots. That's why they're missing all these shots. Nobody else is contributing. Defense isn't really there. Again, it's the first game of the season, so we don't want to jump the gun. But back to the first game that I was going ahead and talking about, my Oklahoma City Thunder went ahead and didn't really look good in the first half of this game. The Rockets really came out, with their newly equipped, team with, Thompson at the helm, and then you got KD as well with, Jabari Smith Jr., and Steven Adams to anchor. This team is going to be lethal. They're very tall. They're very long. Everybody is about 6'7", 6'8". So it's like They're going to get steals, they're going to get blocks, they're going to be in passing lanes, and it's going to be hard to score on this basketball team. And I think that's what we figured out early. Again, first game of the season, rust, get it off, go ahead and get that, first game jitters out of the way, especially after going ahead and getting that ring from last season. You know what I mean? Defending champs. But back to the point, I think that we didn't play good basketball in the first half. We started to figure it out in the second half, a little too late. Finally, we figured it out. Shea bailed us out, going to overtime, back and forth, going to overtime, back and forth. We finally figured it out, getting a couple stops, and then leaning on Shea again. But we need a couple others to contribute, as well as the rebounding to, up the ante. I know that we didn't sign anybody in the offseason, to go ahead and help that situation. So ultimately, we have to figure it out. And so with Chet, with Hartenstein, I think that we need to find a way to just get boards, box out, do what you need to do. Go back to the basics, the fundamentals, and figuring out how you can get as many boards as you can. Because when you face a Rockets team like that in the playoffs, they're going to out-rebound you. They're going to get second-chance points, and that's what they did tonight. And that's how they were, in this game late till the end. So at the end of the day, we got the dub. We had, Shea, the MVP, go ahead and bail us out. But that can't be the way of our formula and ways of winning continuously. So we need to figure that one out. But those were great 2 games to start off the NBA season. We got a whole nother slate tonight. Let's get into the NBA schedule right now at Wednesday, October 22nd. So we got Cleveland at New York. That's going to be a great game at 4 p.m. All these games are starting at 4 p.m. or later. Brooklyn at Charlotte, Miami at Orlando, Toronto at Atlanta, Philadelphia at Boston, Detroit at Chicago, New Orleans at Memphis, Washington at Milwaukee, Clippers at Utah, San Antonio at Dallas, Sacramento at Phoenix, and Minnesota at Portland. And then we got a couple more teams that weren't playing in those first 2 days. And we got Indiana going ahead and squaring off against the Oklahoma City Thunder, a finals rematch on Thursday. We're heading to Indiana to face off against them. And then Denver heading to Golden State, their first game of the season for the Denver Nuggets. So those are going to be great 2 matchups on Thursday, but those are the rest of the slate for the next couple of days, guys. And I'm just excited for the season. A bunch of new faces and new places, and I can't believe the season is already here. It feels like yesterday that it ended, and now it's here. But let's get into this article of new faces in new places before we go ahead and cap off this part 2 of episode 50. So I got an ESPN article here for you guys. NBA newcomers to watch, ranking 14 new faces on new teams. So new faces in new places. Starting off with number 1, Kevin Durant. Obviously, this is an exciting face in a new place. From the Phoenix Suns going to the Houston Rockets in that trade with Jalen Green. So that's going to be interesting. I know he's 37, but this team that has a lot of potential and was the 2nd seed last year in the Western Conference playoffs. This is going to be interesting. I know that they lost last night to the Oklahoma City Thunder in that opener, but they were competing extremely well with the Thunder. Again, game 1, don't want to jump the gun, but when you add a former MVP, when you add an all-NBA player, a perennial scorer, arguably the greatest scorer of all time, the way that he scores the basketball, it's scary. It's scary to add to any team, and to add to a team that's already have pieces around. It's going to be interesting to see this 37-year-old Kevin Durant, 37-year-old Kevin Durant going to the Houston Rockets. And second, Desmond Bane going to Orlando Magic, the 27-year-old swingman coming from the Memphis Grizzlies going to the Orlando Magic. Again, another team that is kind of solidified and went to the playoffs and has a lot of great pieces around, and now dropping in a Desmond Bane who has a really great proficient 3-point percentage, went 41% from 3, it says right there, career-wise. It's great for the Orlando Magic, and having it, in this, facet right now, especially in this window with Paulo Banchero and Franz Wagner. I think that it's going to be very interesting going forward to see what they do going not only in this season, but hopefully deep into the playoffs. Cameron Johnson, someone we haven't really talked about a whole lot, really been, flying under the radar in, the Brooklyn Nets uniform, now in a Denver Nuggets uniform. So, going to be interesting to see his new role with the Denver Nuggets. And I know that it's going to be exciting because he really hasn't had a role, that's managed to, I guess give him the limelight, you could say. He's had a lot of great teams that he's been on with the Suns and, obviously with the Brooklyn Nets. But, when you go to an organization that's won a championship, recently, I feel like you have a little bit more juice. So he's going to be playing with Nikola Jokic and Aaron Gordon and Jamal Murray. And this is going to bring a little bit more side and a different side of him. So I expect to see a really good Cameron Johnson going forward. Now we move on to the coach perspective. It was Mike Brown is going to be at the helm for the New York Knicks, taking over for Tom Thibodeau after that firing last season, which was very interesting after they went ahead and had a great season in New York. So what is going to happen now with Mike Brown at the helm? I don't think that it'll drop off too far or drop off at all. And I do expect to see the Knicks back in the prime position that they were last season to go ahead and advance to the NBA Finals. But at the end of the day, will there be a drop off? Will there be a lack of chemistry? Will there be something missing from this acquisition and a firing that a lot of people didn't really see happening? So going forward, will the New York Knicks be good or be bad? Now moving on to DeAndre Ayton, now being in a Los Angeles Lakers uniform. DeAndre played last night, looking pretty decent. I think that they're going to have to, really get him going on the offensive side of the ball. I think that he's somewhat decent on the defensive side of the ball and can rebound when he wants to, but really got to get his scoring going because that's what they really need is, on top of the rebounding, they really need a some pillar in the paint that can score. So having someone like that would be awesome. And moving on to someone like that is Miles Turner, someone that they tried to get in the offseason. Sorry, trying to crack my neck. But someone they're trying to get into the offseason for the Lakers was Miles Turner, now with the Milwaukee Bucks. This is going to be an interesting acquisition, an interesting you know, player on this team because of the fact that you have Giannis Antetokounmpo, but he loves to play with big men down low as well. So we'll see. There isn't going to be any Damian Lillard going forward, so hoping that, it'll carry, forward with the Milwaukee Bucks and not really lose a beat with Miles Turner and not having Damian Lillard. He wasn't there in the playoffs, so I feel like they won't really miss a beat, but who knows, guys? Will Giannis, you know, be the same Giannis with Miles Turner on the team? But this is still a great acquisition for the Milwaukee Bucks going forward. And now at number 7, we have Kristaps Porzingis in an Atlanta Hawks uniform. Obviously with the health issue of Kristaps Porzingis, in a Celtics uniform. That's why he wasn't playing a lot of those games in the back end of the season last year. Now being in an Atlanta Hawks uniform hopefully changes the mojo going forward for Kristaps. He's great when healthy. And I think that with the Atlanta Hawks, having a guy like that next to Clint Capella, next to Conquo, next to Trae Young, hoping that this pans out and this will hope to make the Hawks a lot better and a solidified playoff team. They're really just flirting on the edge of play-in playoff team and hoping that this really propels them into a solidified playoff team. Now moving on to a rookie of this season, Cooper Flagg, none other than the Cooper Flagg of the Dallas Mavericks, the number 1 overall pick of this season. This is going to be extremely exciting to watch this entire season, obviously because of the fact that he's an extreme rare talent that you don't necessarily see move the way that he moves, shoot the ball the way that he shoots, and play the way that he does. So aggressive, so kind of just pedal to the metal, downhill, He is going to be a borderline perennial all-star, borderline perennial um, all NBA, and possibly, a gold jacket when it's all said and done. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. This guy is going to be good and is going to carry a lot of weight as well, though, because of the situation that he was walking into. Um, being the number one pick, obviously, but also with the Luka Doncic trade and Nico Harrison going ahead and feeling like he needed to go ahead and make a move, and with the luck of the draw, luck of the hat, getting this pick, getting this number one overall pick, and making up for that Luka Doncic trade. So hoping it pans out for Flagon, hoping that he doesn't really see it as, oh, I need to fill the shoes of Luka Doncic. Just go in and be Cooper Flag. That's who you need to be. Norman Powell now in a Miami Heat uniform. This is going to be interesting to see right next to Tyler Hero and company and Bam Adebayo. I think that he fits in well with the schematics of a Spoelstra's type regime. Norman Powell going to be filling in kind of the Jimmy Butler role, but Miami hoping to stop flirting with that play-in team, just like the Atlanta Hawks, the play-in, the playoff, hoping that they can go ahead and make the playoffs this season, not have to make the play-in and win any play-in games and do all the dramatics, hoping that they can just cruise into the playoffs and be a playoff team because the East is wide open this year. So hoping this addition can make dividends. At number 10, Jalen Green now with the Phoenix Suns, obviously with the trade with Kevin Durant. This is going to be interesting to see going forward with the Phoenix Suns and Devin Booker as well as not Gombardo, but Devin Booker as well. Who else do they have on their team? They lost a lot of their pieces this season. I'm blanking on a lot right now, but at the end of the day, adding a Jalen Green to a Phoenix Suns roster will hopefully pay dividends. I know that it's carrying a lot of weight trying to replace quote unquote Kevin Durant, even though they didn't really do much in Phoenix. No more Bradley Beal as well. So it's going to be interesting to see the new face of the Phoenix Suns going forward. Devin Booker still got that role, but will Devin Booker leave or want to leave going forward? So hoping that Jalen Green pans out for the Phoenix Suns. At number 11, Ty Jerome with the Memphis Grizzlies. This is a great backer for Ja Morant. Ja Morant's been kind of in and out of the lineup a lot in recent history, so hoping that Ty Jerome can really solidify that backup role and really be a great piece behind Ja Morant. He's a great backup point guard and a great ball handler at 28 years old, coming out of Virginia, doing what he has been doing in the league with the Cleveland Cavaliers. I think it'll fit in great with the Memphis Grizzlies, and hoping that maybe that he may get a 6-man role. I think he might be right now just a straight up backup, no starter at all as well, but maybe a 6-man role because he can score the basketball, not to mention. And Bradley Beal coming from the Phoenix Suns, now going to the Los Angeles Clippers, and we will see what happens with this because Kawhi Leonard and company, obviously with Zubac, it'll be interesting. A new team, new face, new place. Hopefully this changes the mojo as well for Bradley Beal because it didn't really pan out well in Phoenix. Got all that money, didn't really do anything with the trio that they had. So hoping that it just, like I said, makes it work in LA because he is a baller and I know that he can score and put the basketball in the rim, but it's just a matter of getting open and having the right fit. And I think the Clippers are a great fit. Hoping that he plays a little bit more defense for them, but who knows going forward. At number 13, Dylan Harper for the San Antonio Spurs. It's going to be interesting to see him going forward as well as the number 2 pick. In this draft, it's going to be very great to see this young core of the San Antonio Spurs with Wembanyama, Vassell, Harper, as well as Castle, who was the recent Rookie of the Year. Great young core. No more, no more pop, but it's gonna be fine for the Spurs. They got a great coaching, staff behind them, behind Pop that he left behind. So hoping that it just continues to carry on for years and years and years, and you see the progression of Wembanyama and all these younger stars going on in the West. And it's going to be hard because this West is full of talent, but Dylan Harper adds to the San Antonio Spurs team. And last but not least, VJ Edgecombe, another rookie of this class that's I think, a really underrated piece to the 76ers team because McCann's going to be out for some time. Getting VJ Edgecombe from Baylor, a solidified scorer, solidified baller who all he wants to do is just make his family proud. Watching a lot of videos on VJ Edgecombe, but with all that being said, I think that it is going to be a great career for him, and this is going to be a great role for him. I know that the Sixers have a lot to prove this season, especially after that down year that they had last year, hoping that Embiid stays healthy. But VJ Edgecombe is a certified baller and is going to be a great piece for this 76ers team. But that is the end of this part 2 of episode 50 of this JPA episode, guys, and I appreciate you guys for tuning into this special edition of Jay's Point After. It was a little split episode, kind of a little celebratory edition of it, getting as much as I can out, as much content as I can go ahead and talk about for you guys on this episode 50, a little celebration for myself and having 50 episodes under my belt. Appreciate you guys going ahead and tuning in, and I hope you guys liked it, and hope you guys go ahead and tune in the future for not only these types of episodes, but also going forward with the Thunder banter and the Chargers banter, and full-fledged go on that right now, and tune into my TikToks as well. But I appreciate you guys tuning in. With all that being said, and have a great week, and I'll see you guys soon. We out.